Welcome back, everyone. The Triton Invitational did not disappoint, with USC handing UCLA their first loss in over a year. We'll break down how they did it. Hawaii continued their upward trend, knocking off Fresno State in a very competitive overtime match, and UCI to take third place overall. The Men's National League kicks off this week. We'll highlight some of the must-see action, and our guest will go in depth on building the most competitive water polo league for the men that we've ever seen in the United States. All that, there's a ton more. Let's get this episode going. It's Water Polo Wednesday.
Howdy, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Water Polo Wednesday with Wes and Clay.
I'm Wes.
And I'm Clay. If you're listening to us on Spotify, follow along. If you're on YouTube, like and subscribe, hit that bell notification, and feel free to message us on any and all of those platforms or email us at waterpolowednesday@gmail.com. We've got an exciting weekend coming up with the Men's National League kicking off this year, the 9th annual. Let's start with that this week, Wes.
Yeah, I mean, as we previewed a lot of water polo this spring, the first weekend of the Men's National League is starting this weekend 1 of 5. It's going to be extremely competitive, I feel like really competitive. A couple of reasons why. Colleges are still kind of getting back into it. They're like getting back into shape. They're not at the, tip top of their fitness levels. And I know the men's teams have been training pretty hard to ensure that they are in shape. So the obvious winners are maybe not as obvious as we think. So I think that provides some pretty exciting action. 2 pools, Westminster High School and, of course, at Woolett. Couple of key games this weekend I'd call out to watch for. The first one being a 12 o'clock match at Woolett on Saturday is Channel Cats versus USC. I'll be on the call for that. There's been a lot of talk about Channel Cats over the past month or so. They beat LA Athletic Club at Neely, which kind of put them on the map. It's a big win for them. First time they've ever beaten LA Athletic Club. This will be a real challenge to see if they can actually hold their ground versus USC, who's extremely talented. And then they'll get LA Athletic Club in the game of the week that evening at 6 p.m. And so that's the second game I'd highlight, both at Woolett. It's kind of where the action's going to be for some of the bigger games, the bigger matchups. You'll have Channel Cats versus LA Athletic Club at 6 p.m. And if you can't tell, I'm pretty hyped up about this, Clay. Are you pretty excited yourself?
I'm very much so. It's great to see what the Channel Cats have built up over the past few years. It's nice to see more competitive teams coming around the scene when others sometimes drop off at the same rate, right? So that's really awesome, and it should be a charged battle with both teams playing hard. And I think more than anything, I'm looking forward to the atmosphere that evening. There was very much the intention from Tom Davis, National League chair, to create this just a better atmosphere for the pool. We'll get more into that later. And getting more numbers out there on the deck and just having that NC2A championship vibe and bringing that to the men's level, we call it, of water polo, kind of combination of collegiate and post-collegiate water polo. So that's what I'm most excited about for sure. It's really remarkable how many teams are playing as well, just for the visibility of the league. And it's all going to be streamed on overnight. Yeah. So you're doing some of the calls for the games, Wes. Which ones are those?
So I'll be doing the Channel Cats USC game at noon on Saturday. So if you're unable to make it out, though we'd highly recommend you do come out for
please,
at
yes,
6 p.m. game.
We no admission. It's free to come.
Yeah, no admission fee, no gate fee. We anticipate 300 to 400 people at that game, is what I've been hearing. If you talk to your club coaches, talk to your parents, whatever else, get out there if you can. I'll be on the call for the Channel Cats USC game at 12 p.m. And then again, Sunday, LMU is playing at 12 p.m. I'll be on the call for that. Both should be a ton of fun to watch and hopefully get some eyeballs on that stream. But again, want to build the crowd. We're really trying to grow the sport. If we want to grow the sport, if you want the sport to grow, this is a type of thing that has to have attendance and is popular. Otherwise, it's just kind of another game, which is, if this is anything but that.
Yeah. We've said that this is the 9th year of National League, and up until this point, we were hoping that the National League would develop to something more closely resembling a pro league, kind of what Premier League could do at one point back in the day, and it was pretty stagnant for pretty much its entirety and hadn't really matured onto a next level. Now, some changes in NC2A rules have allowed the league to expand to include these college players in the form of clubs, not being directly related with their school. So that's just really exciting. And the rosters have been released for all of these teams, and the schedule is set. Wes, what are you most looking forward to, not just this weekend, but for the season as a whole?
You know, I think I'm curious how this is all going to play out with these collegiate players playing against men who are older and some of the youth kid. There's a lot of players who are not in college in this league. Again, some older and some younger. And how will the younger guys fare? I think there's at least one youth player on just about every team. How will the older guys fare? The guys who are no longer in college, can they hold their own, right? Have they been staying in shape? As we know, Clay, firsthand, that this is very much about fitness. So it's an opportunity for these young kids to show their wares, if you will, and acquit themselves in front of our Olympic coach and the development coaches, Jack Coker and Dejan Udovičić, to call out specifically. They will be there. It's a chance for the older guys to kind of prove they still have it. Some of the older guys are very much in line and ambitious, have the ambition to be a part of the Olympic team in 2028 for their respective countries. Right? We know that Max Casabella, who's in the league, will be trying to be on Spain's Olympic team in 2028. He played in the World Cup. We know that Rafa, who's playing in the league, is part of the Brazilian national team. He'll be trying to make that Brazilian team to qualify for the Olympics in 2028. It's a chance for the college players to show they're ready for the next level. Everyone seemingly has something to play for, so it's not recreational. I think what's cool about this is it's anything but Masters water polo. Right? It's an elite high-level league. And whoever wins this league this year will have won the toughest league we've ever put together in the entire country. Ever.
Absolutely.
Ever for this country. And full stop on that, right? It's going to be brutal. 14 teams. It's the largest ever we've ever seen. Top-tier talent, including current, past, and future Olympians, will be part of this for sure. I can't wait for this weekend and things to kick off. Like, I'm already packed. Right. I'm flying down in like 2 days. I was packed on Monday. I am like, truthfully, like I get that excited about this stuff and just got to keep myself a little bit busy. So I'm very excited.
Yeah. And on that, there's been, since National League has been around, there's been a handful of different men's tournaments for a while. Like Fisher Cup used to be like the championship for post-collegiate club water polo. And then National League came about, and there's kind of, okay, is it National League? Is it Fisher Cup? And then is it Senior Nationals?
Yeah.
And then we saw Senior Nationals simply become Fisher Cup. So now there's just National League and Senior Nationals, but the college teams couldn't compete in National League, but they could in Senior Nationals. So which is like the true championship?
Yeah.
And now we have a league that has everybody for the most part in it. And I think it's pretty definitive that National League is now the championship to win of the year, which makes the stakes even higher, which makes it more exciting. It's going to be a remarkable season. Kicking off this weekend, again, Woollett Aquatic Center, Westminster High School in Irvine. I've got goosebumps just thinking about it. Wes, all right, what's next? What else is top of mind?
Yeah, so we've got a great guest this week, Tom Davis, the commissioner of the USA National League. But before we get to that, we, of course, want to send the gratitude out to our sponsor, Prep to Play Sports. Today's episode of Water Polo Wednesday is brought to you by Prep to Play Sports. At Prep to Play Sports, we believe every young athlete deserves the tools and support to unlock their full potential and stand out in the competitive world of college sports. Prep to Play Sports is a platform specialized for water polo players, offering personalized game film reviews, custom training and nutrition plans, and recruiting guidance, all from Division I athletes, strength and conditioning coaches, and nutritionalists. By connecting athletes with experts who know what it takes to succeed, Prep to Play Sports helps players take their game to the next level to secure their dream recruiting offer. Visit prep2playsports.com to learn more.
And that's with a two. That's with the number two. That's with the number two.
Correct.
Prep number two, playsports.com.
Yeah, we'll be right back with our interview with USA National League Commissioner Tom Davis. Welcome back, everyone. We have a really special guest. This is very unique here. The first time ever that we've had a commissioner on. Tom Davis, thank you for being here. You are the National League USA National League commissioner this year, as well as a club director at Chettle Islands United. So, Tom, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you both for having me. I really appreciate it. It's great to be with you.
Yeah. So this is your first year as the National League commissioner. Clayton and I have been a part of this far longer than you have. We've been part of this now since the inception of it. This year, very different than ever before. Talk to us, kind of how did you get roped into taking this on, and this labor of love, this passion and calling that you have. How did you get roped into doing this? And we are very appreciative that you are, certainly. But like, what inspired this?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's not something that I anticipated that I would be involved in, especially at this level. I've always had a passion for the sport and specifically for growing it. I'm on the board here in the Coastal Zone and I help with ODP. And just for me, the growth of the sport is paramount, right? Building athletes, building coaches, giving players great opportunities. And, when I knew that there was going to be a need for someone to step in and work on this, quite honestly, I wasn't certain what I was getting myself into. As I'm sure you both know, it's a lot of work and a lot of uncertainty kind of day to day.
Yeah.
But having conversations with some of the staff at USA Water Polo, and they were great. And, people that had done this before in the past were very encouraging about it. I said, well, you know what, why not? Let's give it a go. Let's just see if we can make this something that's special for everybody. And certainly with the expansion of the league and the way that it's grown, we have had our hiccups and bumps in the road. We're doing our best to work through those and hopefully put out a product that, is superior to anything that we've ever done in the past.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. Have you, man, it's just such a different league this year for so many different reasons. The extension of the schedule, the inclusion of collegiate club teams, the inclusion of current college athletes on the men's club teams.
Yeah.
What are a couple things outside of those things you think would elevate this league and make it a better product, combined with what do you think it needs?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? I think, my vision for this when I first started, and I think I shared this with both of you probably either in email or phone calls that we've had, and I've shared this with some of the other members, is, that this could be kind of the beginning of a real league here in the U.S., like you see in other countries, right? And I think, we probably thought that we would be a little bit further along, than we are, and that's the reality of it. My long-term goal is obviously more athletes playing, the ability to generate and bring revenue into the league, covering costs. If there's the opportunity at some point to get athletes paid through the league, I think that would be a great thing. I think that the growth of the league is only going to strengthen the original mission of the league, which was to help, grow our pipeline and our national teams and our national program. And I don't see how it can't possibly be better, given that you're, taking the amount of athletes and literally doubling and tripling them in just a year. So I think that that's going to be a big thing. I think ultimately, one of the things for me that I'd like to see long-term is the on-deck experience. I'd like to see that change and evolve, right? I'd like to see us get a real fan base there. And I think for me that comes down to a couple things. First, getting youth teams and youth players involved, right?
Absolutely.
The people that are most excited about the sport are oftentimes people that are early in their career, right? They haven't been around it as long. I think that getting them on deck and showing them what the sport can be at its highest level here in the U.S. is going to be pivotal for the sport and for its growth. I think a quality, streaming product or television product is going to be paramount as well. I really do.
And this year it will be streamed, right? Just like the last year's.
Yes. Well. Yeah. No, we have our partners at Overnight that are going to be responsible for the streaming. We're going to have announcing. They're going to be doing some exciting things with their platform. That I'll let them just discuss or kind of reveal to the public.
Sure.
But it's going to be good, and I think there's only room to grow, really.
Yeah. So talk to us about that on deck experience. I am curious about that. Yeah, paint that picture. What does that look like to you in a perfect world?
Yeah.
Aside from getting youth kids out there, obviously that's important to show them the way.
I think events before and after
Okay.
games are going to be a big thing, right? I think some of the things that they do in Europe, for example, maybe you do VIP seating. That would be kind of fun to do,
Mm-hmm.
right? You do meet and greets, things like that, right? You get music, you get a vibe going. Those are the types of things, like you go to an NBA game, when there's a stoppage, there's music, there's dancers, there's excitement, right? There's a vibe that happens.
Yeah.
I haven't been there yet, but the new Clippers arena I hear is amazing for this type of thing, right? They want you in your seat. They want you, cheering and interacting. And I think we have the technology for it. We just need to now build the audience.
Yeah, you should talk to James Graham at Water Polo U. I mean, this guy's all about it. They do barbecues and giveaways and free ice cream and root beer floats, I think, when the home team wins.
Yeah, you wouldn't forget that, Wes.
Oh, no chance. That's not really necessary, Clay. But that's really cool, man. And so, obviously this year, first year out, a lot of challenges. Any particular hurdles that you just didn't anticipate, or something that's like a craw on your side of we got to solve this? Do you pinpoint it?
Yeah. I mean, I think calendaring is always the biggest issue.
Yeah, sure.
It seems to be in our sport, right? You have colleges that are participating as clubs. Some are on quarters, some are on semesters. It's a challenge to make the calendar line up.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing. You have some teams that are going to stay in 8 hours. Their players will play as club players all year or all season. And then you have some that are going to be in 20 hours, and there'll be a couple play dates where they'll play as a college team. And balancing all of those things is, while it should be simple, it's not easy, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, it makes me laugh. It should be simple, but it's not easy. Additionally, there's, the nuance of not just these collegiate clubs. They're not really participating as a collegiate club. They're participating as a third party club because everybody is now deemed kind of pipeline, if my understanding is correct.
That's correct.
Furthermore, there are now youth kids that are able to play with these side clubs. And so it's not even just a college.
Right.
It's, you got a college, you got some high school kids, whatever else, which to your point is breeding that kind of evidence, if you will, a realization that they can continue to play beyond college, which I think is always great. That's part of the reason that we've been so invested.
Hitting on the youth kids, I think that's it's important for those kids to see the vision of what this can be. Right?
Yeah.
And those, it's not like just any youth player can play. You have to be selected by pipeline staff and approved to play in the league if you are not of college age. So, that's an important distinction there for sure. But I think it's important to give those players the vision of what's beyond college. I'd love to ask you a question, because you guys have been at this a little bit longer than I have, right? And you have one of the premier franchises in the league. How has the year been different for you from a different perspective other than mine?
You want to take that
question? Table.
Yeah. Thanks for asking us a question. This has never happened. It's a Water Polo Wednesday. Yeah, I mean, first off, we appreciate all you're doing. Have to be on this side. I think we are acutely aware of the effort it takes to not just put together a team, but put together a league, as we've run a number of leagues as LA Athletic Club or LA Water Polo Foundation. So we know the effort and the kind of wrangling of the cat. So first off, let me lead with that gratitude. Thank you for all that you're doing.
Absolutely.
I think this year is particularly exciting. We've gotten this question year after year. Why can't the college guys play? And you coming in, shaking things up and kind of denoting LA Athletic Club as a pipeline team is huge, right? It's huge. And it allows for a much broader audience in terms of player personnel, as well as higher level competition, where, with all due respect, when I was 38 or 37 and a half and still playing, probably shouldn't have. And I used to say to my wife, the fact that I can still get in the pool for a minute and a half to 2 minutes at a time and not be completely out of sorts is not a good sign. And so I think where we're heading is in a much more competitive direction. And for LA Athletic Club, right, we really pride ourselves on the youth component. And I think that the more competitive it is, the better it is for our youth. We've had a long-standing tradition of bringing in youth kids far before anybody else really ever had. And it was one of our pillars. And that's something we're so excited about, being able to provide even higher level competition for the youth kids that are part of this program. And yeah, I mean, that's something that I think is just so tried and true to building loyalty to the sport, building loyalty to a brand, and having those opportunities. I think it really does perpetuate, longer term growth, longer term involvement in the sport, where I mean, there are a lot of kids who were 16, 17, 18 years old that played for the LA Athletic Club that came back and either traveled to Europe with us or continued to play in National League. Countless. And that's really what's, I think, been huge is that youth program. And so to your point, right, we need to show them the way. That's a long been a core pillar in our foundation of that. And now with how competitive this team is, we had a training, I'm belaboring now, but we had a training last weekend, and the comments I got from our youth kids were just like, they were blown away. The opportunity to play with some of these guys, I mean, they were ear to ear, just thrilled. And then the messages we got from their parents about how happy their kids were, I mean, so rewarding, right? So for them to be able to get in and do these things, just truly amazing.
Yeah, and if you think about it, everywhere else in the world, there is that system. Those youth players are watching the top team all the time.
Like, oh yeah, or playing, right? I was 16 and playing with 30-year-old men in Hungary, and that was normal. Like if you were at the level, they brought you into it and helped you get better. And so like it's we're the only country that seems to have some aversion to it, I think, at this time.
Yeah. I wouldn't say it's aversion. I think we have a little bit of systemic obstacles to overcome where we don't have a native club system, and instead we have a series of 4-year segments that, each to their own point. Like if I'm a head coach of my program, I want to keep my job and I want to be successful. And that often means that I have to make these players fit a certain system that may not be the most optimal breeding ground for development for all of them long term. And so that's why these seasons that are out of the scholastic year, as much as coaches would love for them to keep their unit bound for the entirety of their time at their school, these opportunities where you have both ends, the youth and the eldest players, it's this combination of how do we accelerate the growth of the youth while extending the careers of the most senior players to keep the best of the best playing longer, to give more exposure to those coming after them, and then keep pumping in those youth kids into that environment. And that's how we continue to elevate the sport domestically. And like we love what we're seeing for MLS, for example, bringing in Messi, right? Like, can we get some of these foreign guys in there that'll make it super exciting for kids to see, whether they know who they are or not. Right? Like a lot of things we can emulate from different sports, but the club system does make it very interesting.
Yeah, we don't have clubs that go to like men's programs, right? Like the only one I can think of really is Riptide, and they're the only one that go youth all the way up, right? That's pretty consistent there. And so there's that gap in the market, and I think you use
WP does that.
They have a men's program, but I think you use the word franchise specifically because that's really what this ends up being, right? We're the most marketable, we're the most viewed, or we should be at some point on the men's side of it. And so that'll be interesting to see commercially where that kind of goes and takes everybody, and what becomes available with the growth of ideally the men's game, right? Because that's always been the genesis of this, is to continue to cultivate a higher level of play at a men's level.
Right. And like Clay mentioned, giving players an opportunity to play past their 4-year college experience, right? I think that's something that we all can get behind here, right? In our country, that's what we want.
Tom, putting it back on you, I appreciate the question again. We're going to have a new segment called Water Polo Wednesday First. The on-deck experience, I love that focus. I would totally agree. I think I watch other kind of fringe sports on social media here and there, and seeing clips of fans getting really excited, and you can just see that like the environment is electric, and what components maybe make that happen. And that could just all be smoke and mirrors and just editing, right? And music behind it. But we like to talk about metrics and priorities. So very curious to you, like, okay, on deck experience, here's a lot of ideas. Is there some kind of metric or a primary metric that you're wanting to measure to say this season of National League was a success because we hit a certain target or we raised the bar in this way?
The number of fans or total views, or
I think the easiest one to garner is probably going to be stream views, for sure.
Stream views.
I think that's probably going to be the easiest metric. Attendance, you can guesstimate for sure. But I think, the if I were going to go with a live metric, it would be like attendance at our marquee games, because we have a lot of games.
Yeah.
The schedule is packed. There's a lot of great ones, um, but there are going to be some ones that are really going to be marquee matchups. And for me, I think I'll know that we're successful if the stands are completely packed for those matchups. That's what we want to see, right? It's going to be like the LAAC, Nyack or Channel Cats, right? Or if we get a Trojan versus Mission with a lot of the USC and UCLA players playing there, right? That's going to be an exciting matchup. So I think looking to some of those, I don't know if you call them game of the weeks, but kind of like that idea, right? I think that's going to be important, and I think the streams are going to be important. I was talking a little bit with our partners at Overnight earlier today, and they were mentioning that they've had, in the water polo space, they've had growth year over year of like 30% in streaming. I think that's big. I think if we can get that here, then we're well on our way for sure. So those are I think, Clay, those are probably going to be the two biggest ones for now.
Solid.
I'd love to get more granular with it and dive a little deeper, but I think, we're at such a foundational level with this that we don't really need to look beyond those.
Yeah.
Well, and we don't know what
you're tracking the on deck attendance.
I think we will do. We'll probably do soft counts. I don't think we're going to do ticketing or hard counts, but I'll be certainly doing soft counts when I'm on deck for sure.
Yeah. And so you call that a couple of big games. Obviously, there's 4 regular season weekends. If teams play in all 4, they're going to get probably 12 games, 11 to 13 games, something like that. Maybe an exhibition. I think LA, we've got 13 if you include our exhibition. And then championships, those are at Mount Sac, April 26, 27. So a pretty elongated season, a little bit of a break there for the early part of April. Talk to us about, once this thing kicks off, right? Like, are you already iterating on where we go next year? Like, what does that look like? Have you thought about that at all? Not to get too, I know you're in the weeds of it right now.
Yes, and no. I mean, I've given it enough thought to know that we're going to start thinking about it the second that the season is over.
Yeah.
If not sooner.
Yeah.
We're still in the thick of finalizing rosters, getting the media machine going. At some point we're going to circle back to the sponsorships that, we know that we can go and get, and hopefully get some revenue into the ecosystem for sure. But yeah, I don't think, I think you can't start too early on the calendaring piece. I think starting, like, we could have started a month ago on next year's calendar, really, to try to line things up. Right.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be important, but yeah, I think, and then we know we did have a vision for a NorCal division, and the biggest breakdown there was the calendaring. We had 6 teams that we were looking to do a separate satellite division up there. We couldn't quite make it work this year. My hope is that we can get it to work next year with a little bit of pre-planning.
Yeah. Well, you got 3 on quarter system, and you got 3 on semester system, and semesters end in early to mid-May, quarters end in June, and midterms and spring break, and all the fun things we get to do as collegiate athletes. So very cool. Clayton, anything else you got? This has been awesome.
Truly. Yeah. I mean, I guess I'm interested in origins and where people come from. So I think you said you grew up in Orange County. Is that right?
I grew up in Orange County. I started my water polo career at illustrious La Habra High School, which had a shallow pool, I think, when I was there.
You know what? San Clemente still has the exact same pool. Don't you worry.
Really?
It's still the same pool.
And then, fortunately found club my sophomore year, ended up at UC Irvine playing for Newland, which was amazing. Would not trade that experience for anything. Yeah. He was a legend. And then, ended up, seems like many married men do, moving up to the Ventura area to be near the wife's family as we started to have children. So I've been up here ever since. And, I took a little bit of time, almost 2 decades off after playing, and then just kind of got back into it, and really got into it when my middle son started playing. And then it's just kind of been like, accelerated to the floor since.
Thank you for sharing.
Very cool.
Love that. Did you know Bob Neely?
So funny story about Bob Neely. Yeah.
I was going to say,
Wes already knows this. So, I started a business right out of college, and Bob was actually one of my first clients, and, with Surfmore, and,
wow.
was a great mentor to me, and was just such a good dude. Yeah. I knew Bob very well.
And I think you've been participating in the Bob Neely Memorial Cup since maybe the very first one 9 years ago, 8 years ago. Yeah.
Yep.
Very cool. Well, Tom, we thank you for your service. Because what you're doing is truly, truly a service. I know there's no compensatory benefit for you here other than just you get to be the National League commissioner, which may or may not be something you want to keep doing. But we're very thankful for all the effort that you have put in, and all the time and the phone calls. And I'm sure your phone and is blowing up, and maybe your relationship too. So thank your wife for us.
Yes, no, she gets honestly all the things because she has tons of
Yeah,
patience with,
yeah,
she puts up with my water polo nonsense,
yeah,
but I will say, I'm very thankful for all of our teams and participants this year because you guys have been great to deal with.
yeah.
To a team, everybody's been spectacular, very supportive of what we're trying to do. And, it's made it, made what's been a little bit of a more complicated job than we thought it was going to be, much more pleasant to deal with. So I thank you guys as well.
Sure. Well, look, we'd like to turn it over to you. The studio is yours. If you want to promote something, whatever it is, it's all yours from here. We're very appreciative of the time, Tom. So thank you.
I would just, I just want to encourage your viewers to get out this weekend. I mean, we're going to have an amazing first weekend, February 7, 8, 9. We're going to be at Woolett and we're going to be at Westminster. And there's going to just be some amazing games. I think our marketing team at USA Water Polo is starting to get that out. You guys have done a great job, as have some of the other men's teams of promoting these games. And we really appreciate that. But I think, these games are going to be something that people are not going to want to miss. They're going to be pretty special. So I would encourage everyone to get out there and come watch some of these games.
Awesome. Yeah, we're all very excited. And I think I can't wait personally. I'm all jacked up. So all good things, Tom. Thank you so much for being here and taking the time tonight. It's great to have you on. You're always welcome back. We'd probably love to check in near the end. And everybody, if you're out there, you're watching this, be sure to stop by Woolett or Westminster High School for games Friday night at Woolett and then Saturday, Sunday at both Westminster and Woolett. So thank you again, Tom. Appreciate everything.
Thank you, guys. Have a great night.
It's not every day you get insider information like that, and especially from such a stand-up guy. He's so pleasant to talk to.
Yeah, very kind of him to share his time with us. So
yeah, welcome back, everyone. We are in our women's segment now, reversing things up due to National League for the men's side kicking up. An incredibly exciting weekend for the women down in San Diego. We talked about this last segment at the Triton Invitational. Talk to us about what went on, some surprises, and what we learned.
Yeah, an exciting weekend had by all down in San Diego, right? Pretty epic competition. First off, we have to call it out. UCLA lost their first match in over a year. Congrats to USC for winning the Triton Invitational, taking down UCLA 14-11 in the final. They were on it. They were on it, Clay. Emily Osmus, a freshman. I know she was an Olympian, but here's how how her game would translate and whatever else. Absolutely crushed. She's incredibly talented and special. It's remarkable what she was able to do. You have to think about this. She was a high school girl 8 months ago, and to come into the NC2A, learn a new system, be able to put up 2 goals and 3 assists against an undefeated UCLA and Lauren Steele, who we very much like very much in the goal, is legit. Now, USC isn't just young, and they're veteran-laden too. Rachel, I'm going to do my best with this name, Gazaniga, and Ava Stryker. Rachel put up 4 goals on 7 shots, over 50% shooting. Ava put up 2 goals on 6 shots, 33%, not bad. Those 3 players really paced the USC attack. On the other side, Clay, Anna Pearson is the real deal. Basically, USC's strategy was do not let Anna Pearson beat us. I mean, she drew 6 exclusions in their championship match versus USC. And that was it. USC was like, somebody else has to beat us. Force somebody else to beat us. Bia Montalado also drew 4 exclusions, but was only 1 of 7 shooting. She's the transfer from Hawaii. And so that 1 of 7, that's not going to get the job done, as you saw. I mean, you figure if she scores 2 more of those, goes 3 of 7, maybe 4 of 7, it's a 1-goal game or a tie game. Right. So USC really keyed in on the approach. What I liked most about it was that they played very organized and tremendous team defense. Casey Moon has them ready to go. They are legit. And I mean, it's a big deal to knock off that champion, right? Remember when the men's team for Cal lost? It was a big deal. Now UCLA has lost. Remember, they didn't lose last year. They started the season off with being undefeated, right? They didn't lose in their first 2 weeks. So USC, that's a big deal. Emma Lineback did have a very good day for UCLA. 2 goals, 4 assists, 6 total points in the loss. So UCLA gets beat. It was going to happen at some point, you got to figure. And USC looks every bit the better team on Sunday.
That's incredible. Does this put USC now at the top, you think?
Good question. Yeah, I mean, it's fair to ask that question. I don't know that I can sit here and say definitively that it's them. I will say it's, I believe, probably between them and Stanford right now, just for right now. It's a long season. We'll get into what else is coming up for them, but yeah, it's a long season. So right now we'll just say USC, Stanford. I think Cal's in that mix too, but yeah.
Yeah, well, to be expected somewhat, right? Who else impressed you this weekend at the tournament?
Sure. Yeah, it's a good question. I think, we've talked about this team quite a bit already this season, but Hawaii looks the part again. They look very good. They've taken that tough first weekend we talked about to start the season, and I believe it's really galvanized that team. They're playing with much better together, and the movement's better. The passing is much better. They're finding kind of the extra person on the other side of the pool, right? The open player. They knocked off Fresno State in an overtime win. We previewed that and said that would be a really big game. Went to overtime, about as close as you're going to get, right? Tied and end to regulation. Very competitive match. And then they beat UCI, who's a conference opponent, for third place overall in that tournament. I still think it's Hawaii and Fresno State 5-6. I know Fresno didn't finish top 4. I get that, or even top 6. When you get into these longer tournaments, 4 games in 2 days, the depth piece it's just not equivalent to playing a one-off game, right? Like, I do think, I guess they had a Friday night, 2 Saturday, I think maybe 2 Sunday, maybe it was a 1-2-1, I'm not sure. But you get into those games 3 and 4 in a weekend, and it's just not the same team. The players are just exhausted and whatever else. So these longer weekends really are more favorable to deeper teams, as we know, than oftentimes teams who have maybe a higher top tier talent, but aren't necessarily as deep and can't rest their players quite as much because of the volume of games. So everyone ends up being pretty zapped by the end of the weekend. I think Fresno versus Hawaii matchup was good versus good. Like, they had only played 1 game the day before. Maybe the most competitive game in the entire tournament, going to overtime there. Beyond that, I mean, you got to figure everybody's pretty darn tired, right?
Yeah, makes sense. And seeing as they play so many games at a weekend, no matter who you are, masters or in collegiate shape, that's a lot. So you have to rely on that depth piece. And that's where a lot of teams, you just don't have that depth. But with the new roster rules, that may change. So what's on tap next weekend for the women?
Yeah, right. It will be interesting to see how the rosters shake out. Does the depth get spread out across different schools? TBD, something that I know athletic departments and coaches are challenged with. The Harvard Invitational is next week, so we will see Princeton and Harvard take each other, get to match up there. That's going to be a good matchup, a very big conference game for them effectively, as well as UCSD is heading out there. UCLA actually kicks off their conference play at ASU, so that'll be good to see how they rebound from their loss this past weekend. And then the Barbara Calbus Cup, which is actually in 2 weeks. We'll certainly preview that later. But I do want to kind of put a note here about this, that it's a winner take all, meaning there is a champion. So it's not a round robin. But whoever wins that tournament, because usually it's the top 6 or 8 teams are actually all there. So where this weekend didn't have Stanford or Cal, historically they've all been there, is who I would consider the NC2A favorite this year. And it'll be great to see who really stands out. Last year, there's some precedent for this comment too. Last year, UCLA beat Hawaii in the finals. UCLA won the NC2A championship. In 2023, Stanford won the tournament and won the NC2A championship. I didn't go back any further in a couple of years, but that's pretty good recency given that there's not a ton of turnover year over year. So more indicative than we may think.
Yeah, very interesting. Can't wait to preview that in a couple of weeks. Well, that's it for us, everyone. We want to thank you for joining us on another episode of Water Polo Wednesday. Be sure to continue to follow along. And remember, life is short. Score goals.